What are the reasons for the sanctions?
The reasons include the proxy terrorist activity that's been, I would argue, I'm sure you are going to disagree with me, but the proxy terrorist activity that Iran has been involved in for decades.
What are these
now.
Who are these
Hamas, others arming Syria.
So Hezbollah you consider as a terrorist organization, right?
In part.
No. In part?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well,
is it a terrorist organization? Iran's position on Israel is identical to its position on apartheid South Africa. When your government was supporting the supremacist regime in South Africa, the Iranians were supporting the ANC and Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
The same logic applies to Palestine.
Right.
But as an apartheid state, for Iran, this is not acceptable.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Truth Review. I'm Hayes, and this exchange between a British news host and Professor Mohammad Marandi is worth breaking down piece by piece because it exposes some real contradictions on both sides that deserve honest examination. The host pushed hard on Iranian human rights conditions, specifically citing the death of Mahsa Amini and the treatment of women under Iran's dress code laws. Marandi pushed back with the apartheid comparison to Israel, drawing a direct historical parallel to Iran's support for the ANC against South African apartheid. What follows is a genuinely tense back and forth where both sides make claims that need to be checked against the actual documented record. Hit subscribe because Truth Review checks every claim on every side. Now let's get into it.
Protests that are taking place, the latest round of protests, they seem to be pretty intense and pretty persistent, up to and including this latest tweet or post from the US president. What do you say is going on there? What do you say those protests are about?
Well, there are two issues here. One is that because of the U.S. sanctions and the European sanctions, basically because of Iran's policy against Israel, What
is Iran's policy against Israel?
Yes, because
what is it?
The whole sanction, Iran's position?
Against Israel, yeah.
Yeah, Iran says that Israel is an apartheid state. It is not morally legitimate. And that Palestinians have the right to return, just like apartheid South Africa.
That it shouldn't
and
exist.
And back then,
that it shouldn't exist. It's not. Is that
no?
What you mean?
As an apartheid entity, no.
But
apartheid should not exist anyway. When your government was
I'm just trying to get a sense from, because you're close to the Iranian regime. I want to get a sense of whether.
What does that mean exactly? I'm close to the Iranian regime. Is that how you introduce academics from your own country?
No. In the way that I know that I'm close in terms of having easy access to and contact with and conversations with members of the cabinet. That's all I meant. I didn't mean.
Would you call them the regime?
Well,
would you say it like the?
Yeah. Do you want to go into that?
Yeah, sure. Well, what's the question?
Well, have there been regular democratic elections that?
No, you were talking about Israel.
Oh, okay. We'll go back
Iran's
to that.
position on Israel.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a sense of whether
Iran's position on Israel is identical to its position on apartheid South Africa. When your government was supporting the supremacist regime in South Africa, the Iranians were supporting the ANC and Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
The same logic applies to Palestine.
Right. So it's not the existence of Israel, it's the nature of this Israeli state. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly.
That Iran's opposed to.
The state
not its very existence.
The state could be called Palestine, it could be called Israel, it could be called Walt Disney, but as an apartheid state, for Iran, this is not acceptable.
And isn't Iran something of an apartheid state, particularly if you're a woman?
Have you ever been to Iran?
No, but there's lots of countries I haven't been to that I know about, hear about, read about, speak to people about.
It's not an apartheid state. No, it's not an apartheid state.
Women are dragged off the street for not wearing the veil?
No, that's not true at all.
It is true.
Well, you can say it's true, but that doesn't make it a fact.
I think most people listening know that it is true.
I live in Iran. Many journalists come to Iran. Journalists that you can invite, Jewish journalist Max Blumenthal from the Gray Zone, invite him on your show. And he's been to Iran just recently for a couple of weeks. He went to different cities on his own with his wife. There's also a journalist. Ask him if any women have been dragged off the streets anywhere that he's been to.
So you're denying that the Iranian government forces women to wear the veil, the hijab?
Well, veil is one thing.
I know it is. That's why I corrected myself. And those that don't want to...
You mean the headscarf?
The headscarf.
The headscarf.
And those that don't want to cover their hair, it's trouble for them, isn't it?
No, that nothing happens to them. No, nothing happens to them. And some of my students on campus, in classrooms on campus, they don't wear headscarves. So I think is your I'm just trying to get a sense, is your assertion that in Iran, in the last decade, and even more recently than that, not a single woman, particularly a protesting young woman, has been detained and in one case died in custody with wounds from beating because she had her hair short? You don't believe that happened? No. Mahsa Amini had no wounds. There is no footage. There is footage of her. And in the footage, there is nothing that shows that she was beaten. She had a precondition. Yes, she was taken in, but she was not beaten. Or her dress. There is a law in Iran about a dress code, because whether you like it or not, they believe that the way in which the West promotes women is sexualization, commodification, objectification. So they'll have their own cultural boundaries, whether you agree with it or not.
Well, you've said to me
whether you agree with it or not.
Yeah.
It doesn't. That's one thing. But women being dragged off the streets in Tehran, I've never seen that happen myself.
No, but
this
that
is like
doesn't
when
mean
they
it
keep
hasn't
saying
happened,
gays in Iran are executed. I've never seen a gay person in Iran executed.
But
this is sort
that doesn't
of
mean it's
myth
never happened. Does it?
No.
Just because you haven't seen a woman being dragged off the streets doesn't mean it hasn't happened.
No, I'm not saying it's never happened.
And you are wrong to say, if I can just say, you are wrong to say that Mahsa Amini had no injuries. She had physical injuries, including a skull fracture and brain edema.
No, she didn't. No.
Well, an independent medical analysis and a UN fact-finding mission determined that she did.
There was no UN fact-finding mission in Iran. Where are you getting this information? What was the name of the UN fact-finding mission team, the name of the person who did this?
I don't have that in front of me, but I can find it for you. But you can say that about any statement that I make.
No, but the thing is that
I could do it back to you.
No, because you can't, because the point is that you have to give me names. If I say in the UK, people are being arrested for saying no to genocide, for having a billboard in their hands, no to genocide, they're being arrested for that. I have to show footage of it happening. And I have to show the law saying that this is how it's done. And when you tell me that if you tell me, has a woman ever been dragged away? I'll say yes. If you say that have people been beaten on the streets by the police, I'd say yes. In protests and riots, it happens. Well, if you tell me innocent people have died in Iran in prisons, I'd say probably yes.
Well, it's interesting.
But when you tell, and I would say the same about your country as well. And I would say the same about your country. And the reason is because of your country's hatred for Iran, which has been ongoing for 45 years. If Iran was so deeply despised, then it should have collapsed by now, so long ago.
But when you say,
then your government and your media is concerned about human rights in Iran, where you support Israel, not you, I mean your government, you support Israel, you help Israel in Gaza, you have the flights that go overhead.
We support the rights of Iranians as well. We support the rights of Iranians.
No, you don't. You actually are a country that tries to harm Iranians because you impose sanctions on ordinary Iranians. The maximum pressure sanctions. Do you think the maximum pressure sanctions a government minister?
The reasons.
They're intended to make ordinary people suffer.
You might not like it, but you know the reasons for that. I mean, can I just come back to you on one thing?
What are the reasons? Because since I don't like it, you should tell me. What are the reasons for the sanctions?
The reasons include the proxy terrorist activity that's been, I would argue, I'm sure you are going to disagree with me, but the proxy terrorist activity that Iran has been involved in for decades.
What are these terrorists? Who are these terrorists?
Hamas, others arming Syria.
So Hezbollah you consider as a terrorist organization, right?
In part.
No. In part?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Is it a terrorist organization?
In part,
is it a terrorist
in the same way that the Republican movement in Northern Ireland was in part terroristic,
in the same way that your government is a terrorist organization in part. Your government is a terrorist organization.
Is that your view?
That doesn't make sense. Either you're a terrorist or you're not.
No, organizations can be partly terroristic and partly political. You know that.
Just for your information, Hezbollah was created out of the Israeli invasion of Lebanon. It was a creation of the occupation. Just like the ANC was a terrorist organization, and Nelson Mandela was a terrorist according to your government standards at the time, Hezbollah was created when the Israelis invaded Lebanon and took Beirut.
But you do know, surely, as an academic, that organisations can be terroristic and political and have wings which are both, and social as well. The Republican movement in Ireland certainly did.
So you're saying that the political wing of Hezbollah is not a terrorist organization?
It has connections to a terrorist organisation, yeah, but it operates on different levels.
So it's not a terrorist organization?
In part, it is.
Look, I know you don't want to answer the question. From our perspective, Hezbollah is a national liberation organization that has recovered the South Lebanon and saved Lebanon from Israeli occupation and colonization. And Hezbollah's sin is that it supports the Palestinian people. Hezbollah has been resisting the Israeli regime, and it opposes the regime and the ethnic cleansing and the genocide. Your government, your media supports the genocide. You like Israel, you like what they do, and you consider them to be in your camp. Obviously, we have huge differences because Hezbollah has not carried out mass slaughter, and Israel has. And your government supports despots, countries that have zero elections, but they're not regimes.
But Hezbollah did carry out mass firing of missiles into Israel as well, just to report a fact back at you.
Israel invaded Lebanon multiple times. It took Beirut, and Israel bombs intentionally apartment blocks in Lebanon.
Let's break down what actually happened in this exchange, because there's real substance here on both sides that deserves to be checked against the documented record rather than just reacted to. Start with the Mahsa Amini dispute, because this is the most factually contestable moment in the entire exchange. Marandi claimed there was no footage showing she was beaten and that she had a pre-existing medical condition. The host countered that an independent medical analysis and a UN fact-finding mission determined she suffered physical injuries, including a skull fracture and brain edema. The documented reality here matters. Iranian authorities themselves released hospital footage and medical records claiming she had a pre-existing condition, while her family and independent international investigations, including a UN Human Rights Council fact-finding mission established in late 2022, concluded that Iranian authorities were responsible for her death in custody following physical abuse. That fact-finding mission does exist, and its findings are publicly documented, so Marandi's assertion that no such mission existed does not hold up against the public record. Now to the apartheid comparison, which deserves serious engagement on its own terms rather than dismissal. Marandi's argument draws a specific historical parallel, that Iran's opposition to Israel mirrors the international opposition many countries expressed toward apartheid South Africa, and that Iran's support for groups like the ANC during that era is comparable to its current support for Palestinian resistance movements. That's a coherent argument structurally, but it invites the obvious follow-up question that the host raised directly, whether Iran's own human rights record, particularly regarding the treatment of women and the enforcement of mandatory dress codes, withstands the same scrutiny being applied to Israel. Marandi's response, that some of his own students on campus do not wear headscarves, is an anecdotal claim that does not address the broader documented pattern of enforcement actions, detentions, and the specific case of Mahsa Amini that sparked nationwide protests in 2022. The Hezbollah classification exchange is worth examining closely too, because Marandi's in part terrorist organization answer is actually a more nuanced position than it initially sounds, even though it clearly frustrated the host. Hezbollah does function simultaneously as a political party with seats in the Lebanese parliament and as an armed militant organization, a structure genuinely comparable to how Sinn Féin and the IRA operated during the Troubles in Northern Ireland, which Marandi referenced directly. Organizations with both political and militant wings are not uncommon in the history of national liberation and resistance movements, and treating that structure as inherently evasive misses a real and documented feature of how groups like this actually function. The sanctions question deserves attention as well, because Marandi's core claim that maximum pressure sanctions specifically target and harm ordinary Iranian civilians rather than just government officials is supported by documented economic analysis. Sanctions regimes of this scale have measurably impacted access to medicine, food security, and basic goods for the general population, a documented humanitarian consequence that exists independently of whatever one believes about the Iranian government's broader conduct. Subscribe to Truth Review. We check every claim against the documented record, on every side, and we don't let anyone's narrative go unexamined just because it's uncomfortable to challenge.